edition of the BI Technologies Africa Digital Roundtable Series. My name is Toela Mukosa, and I will be your moderator today. So how did the Digital Think Tank Roundtable Series start? So at BI Technologies Africa, as a technology and business consulting organization, we decided to try and see if we can change the narrative of digital transformation in Africa. So what we've decided to do is every month we call upon subject matter experts, leaders, executives in the field of digital transformation from various organizations, be it startups, be it corporates, OEMs, academia, and we just come together where we share our knowledge, share insights, talk about trends, and also just get to network at the same time. Today, we are talking about integration in the era of digital transformation. And I am joined by my esteemed guests. And thank you so much for having me, for coming over today. So we'll start off with Tapelo. If you can just introduce yourself and just tell us where you're from and the company that you work for, your title, and maybe just define what digital transformation means to you and how integration fits in that process.
Cool. Thank you and good evening to everyone joining. So yeah, I'm Tapelo Ntite, co-founder and CEO of a company called Botlhale AI. So what we do at Botlhale is we help businesses engage with their customers in African languages. So in languages that their customers understand and trust. We do this through AI-powered NLP, really to make the customer's experience as easy and as friendly as possible. I think digital transformation for me, at least in my area, in the simplest way possible would be how do we integrate technologies and systems that can optimize certain processes within an organization's function. And that could be across several departments or functions of that business.
I love that. And I love the fact that you're actually solving an African problem, which typically those solutions might not come from the West, but are actually now homegrown. So very, very happy that you're doing that. Another thing I just want to reiterate is that we are also focusing on the African context. So meaning, what does digital transformation mean for us here in Africa? What are the technologies and trends that would work for us as Africans and in African organizations? And I think now I want to move on to Lyndon. If you can just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, what company you work for, and also maybe give your definition of digital transformation and how integration fits in that process.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Lyndon Munetsi, and I am a Principal Account Manager at Amazon Web Services. We are a global provider of cloud computing services, part of the broader Amazon Group, which is one of the largest companies in the world. I have been involved in digital transformation in my own respect throughout my career, probably for the last 10 or so years. And for me, the real essence of digital transformation is how we can use technology to continuously improve and to continuously open up new opportunities for people from every single walk of life, wherever they are, be it in a big city or in some rural place in the middle of nowhere on the continent of Africa. Digital needs to start playing an active role in enriching these lives. So when we talk about integration, we talk about interconnectivity, we talk about connecting individuals with new opportunities, we talk about small businesses connecting with other small businesses, we talk about the merger of different propositions to bring about new scaled opportunities, all using digital platforms and services to bring about a better Africa.
I love that. Bring about a better Africa. I'd like to move on to Christian. If you could just introduce yourself and maybe your definition of digital transformation.
So, hi guys. Kirshen. I'm from Standard Bank. My role is enterprise architect, and digital transformation, I've been involved in it throughout my career in IT. It's, for me, connecting people with technology. So we have a saying in our department that we like to be involved in the latest and greatest technology that's out there. We want to be exploring, we want to be innovative with it, but we also don't want to be on the bleeding edge of it. We like to be on the cutting edge of technology. So yeah, digital transformation for me means we're implementing that cutting edge in our businesses. We're using it to solve real world problems that the business experiences. We're using it to add meaningful value and attain business outcomes. So yeah, I suppose that applies not just to the Africa context, but to every business that's out there.
Thabang, how are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm great. Great. Thanks, Torella. Good evening to everybody joining us live and online as well. So I'm Thabang Matonzi. I'm a data scientist, data strategist, and all-round AI practitioner and enthusiast. I currently serve as the head of strategic analytics within fraud strategy at Absa Group. So digital transformation for me, I mean, my co-panelists have said it all. I'd like to echo all of the words and just add on that it's about leveraging the best of technology to improve generally organizations, industries, as well as society.
And how does, in your opinion, integration fit into that process that you've just defined?
Well, integration is a big piece. I mean, when we think about the African context, we go through sensationalized headlines about robot workforces that will displace humans in overnight, right? So integration speaks to how do we then optimize efficiencies, optimize our workflows by leveraging AI and digital transformation, so that humans and these robot workforces can work hand in hand.
I just now want to paint a picture. It might not be so bright, but these are the typical stories we hear about Africa and the challenges that we face. So Africa faces a challenge with regards to access to digital infrastructure. We also have a very low digital dexterity, meaning we've got high electricity rates and not a lot of people even have access to the internet for them to even have or develop those digital skills. And then we also have poor power supplies, which also affect the implementation of some of these digital solutions. I mean, recently we also had an undersea cable failure, which caused quite a bit of disruption across Africa. Now, considering all of these big challenges, I want to ask to say, if we are to look into the future, what are some of the trends that you think would be applicable in Africa? That, yes, we have these challenges, but what are some of the beacons of hope or light or trends that we can see that can start working in Africa, specifically on integration?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the picture. But I think the first thing is like really a shift in how we approach that, realizing that whatever work we do, whatever investment we make in Africa isn't just for the current reality, it's for the rich potential that Africa possesses. So I'd say that's the first thing. And always approaching like problem solving through understanding what the purpose is, right? What are you solving? What is the best technology to solve that problem? It doesn't have to be AI, right? You don't want to slice butter with a chainsaw. A butter knife is good enough. So yeah, I think those are the things. But like looking into the future. I think Africa has a young growing population, which, over the next 25, 30 years will be a significant part of the global workforce. And upskilling that youth population is very important so that when it's time to integrate that youth into the larger workforce, they've got the necessary skills, right? And I think the word integration is quite important because it's not replacement, it's integration. So whatever technology, you're training people on, whatever system you're introducing is plugging into whatever vehicle already exists. It's not replacing that vehicle completely.
I like that. In terms of an OEM perspective, what are some of the opportunities that you see that, or trends in technology that would really help the African organization when it comes to integration?
Well, so just as one example, I guess we often speak within the context of what we do. And I think, like I explained earlier, we're a cloud services provider, which basically means we're able to host and deliver infrastructure as code, or to host and deliver application hosting and management within a cloud platform. And what this means is that businesses that operate in Africa are able to go global potentially within minutes by simply getting into a web browser and making certain adjustments to their current architecture. Businesses are now able to scale at a pace that they never could before, in real time sometimes, adapting to demand and supply simply because of the kind of technology that we're bringing to the table. And what this means for African businesses is that your access to markets, access to opportunities is exponentially higher than what it once may have been. Your ability to create and deploy next level innovations is no longer dependent on you having to go and acquire hardware in the form of a rack and stack it up with servers and network it and build out all the security and compliance elements and hopefully start positioning it and provisioning it for production. All of that is now possible on a single web browser, right? And can be done in minutes, not in months. So these are some of the ways that we are starting to see African businesses of every size being able to seize the opportunity to scale in terms of access to markets, to scale and adapt and innovate in terms of products and service propositions, to collaborate with like-minded businesses across the world, and to harness and benefit from global best practice that is being established elsewhere, all because of the broadly and continuously growing community of connected, like-minded individuals from everywhere, all of whom are building. You don't have to start from scratch anymore. You can pick up what's there and you can build on it.
Just touching on cloud services, I want to go into the financial services industry. How, from your experience, I just maybe want to hear, what are some of the lessons that you've learned when it came to integrating systems specifically from a cloud perspective? So there was a big drive, let's go cloud. And like you said, early adopters decided to go and adopt the cloud service. But I would just like to know, from your perspective, what are some of the lessons learned when it came to going cloud, but from an integration perspective, specifically if you've got legacy systems, and now you've got these modern applications running on speed in the cloud?
Absolutely. Cloud is one of the biggest challenges to get right. If anybody looks at you off the cuff and says, cloud is cheaper than on-prem, yes it is, but it's also all about how you implement it. So that's where things like FinOps come in. How are you actually getting financial benefit out of going into cloud? That's where your selection of cloud service provider comes in. Are you going to go to something like a Microsoft Azure? Are you going to go to something like an AWS? Are you going to go to something like a Google Cloud? Based on what criteria, which is the best fit for your organization? Extracting value out of cloud is sometimes not apparent. To give you an example, one of our service providers, and we were having a discussion about it today, they provision hardware as an asset, and we use it for, say, 12 hours a day as one client. Another client sitting in a different time zone can use the same hardware in cloud for the rest of the 12 hours. How are you making those sort of changes to the way that you approach your deployment in cloud? And then obviously there's nuances between the different clouds, different technologies that you can use. For example, if I were doing something in the data space, well, what does Redshift offer me versus in AWS versus something in Azure versus something in Google Cloud? How do I make the comparison between the three? So being strategic and careful, understanding what benefits you're going to get out of it, and just going into that journey either is the right departure point for me.
Thabang, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, definitely. An oversimplification I once came across is there is no cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. So the same principles apply, data integrity, security, and so forth. I think one of the first things you notice when you're doing a cloud migration or integration program is the lack of skill sets. You need skilled data engineers to build the pipelines. If you don't have skilled data analysts or data scientists, you're never going to extract optimal value from the super fast GPUs and infrastructure. So addressing the shortage of skills, particularly in the African context, is a big one for me as well.
I just want to ask, anyone can take this one. How do cloud solutions influence integration strategies? What are those things that you need to consider when it comes to integration, but you want to use a cloud solution to develop an integration strategy? Did you ever experience that?
So I mean, for us, one of the biggest things, as mentioned just now, is it's someone's computer. Where's that computer sitting? What sort of benefits do you get from a specific cloud provider, and the level of capabilities and support and qualified skill set internally to manage that. I'd say those are the biggest considerations. Cost being one of them, because the costs can vary quite significantly depending on the region that you're also in. And again, depending on who you're serving, certain availabilities are crucial because of certain regulations and policies that you have to adhere to. So that's also a very big consideration.
Just out of interest, what did you consider? Because I know here we got our POPI Act, but what are some of those other things that you had to consider to say, am I going to even put my data in the clouds that are in Africa, like in Cape Town or here in Joburg? Were you cognizant to say, I want my data in Africa, or you were open to say, it's okay, I can move it with you to Europe?
Yeah, so I mean, because of what we do, so we deal with sensitive information that can't leave the country. So we have to choose data centers that are in South Africa. But with some cloud providers, certain services might not be available in this particular region. So there's certain services that we need to find a better way to use either outside of South Africa or from a different provider.
Do you want to add to the services, how some of these cloud solutions should start adding their services to data for African organizations?
Somehow I knew this question would come. So when all is said and done, I think the cloud hyperscalers, like any other businesses, are running businesses, right? And for every single service that we bring to a region or to a country, or to an availability zone, there's got to be a fairly solid business plan or a sufficiently sizable addressable market or a clear opportunity that says this is something that we believe if we deploy, we will get some kind of return on investment. And the extent of the investments can be staggering. I think it's in the public domain that AWS, for instance, has already invested in excess of 20 billion rand into South Africa. We see that amount growing by another 10 billion. A lot of that going into infrastructure, a lot of that going into redundancy, but a lot of that going into the provisioning of services here in Africa. Because a lot of the businesses that we're working with, a lot of the enterprises that we're working with, are requesting certain services that will, for now, be sitting in our US West region or in Dublin or wherever. And in order to bring about the kind of change that our customers are looking for, and where it makes sufficient sense, we're certainly looking at bringing more and more closer to the edge. In the case of AI platforms that you can build on, that has also become a global priority for our business, and you will soon start to see the availability of more and more of those services locally. But again, you will understand it is a business imperative as much as we do look at how we can impact society positively as part of that. And just to speak to some of that as well, we spoke about education and skills and that sort of thing. We recently opened a skills center in Cape Town where we train people for free on cloud skills. And the idea is to just start building out a culture of knowledge, a society that carries the kind of knowledge they need to be able to innovate and create and bring about a level of participation in the digital economy that currently does not exist today. And this is in Cape Town today, but in partnership with a lot of our other customers, corporates. I mean, we've got the one bank here that is running probably the largest skills guild in Africa. They've trained over 6,000 people. They have certified, and by certification I mean this is a industry recognized, skill. They've certified over 2,500, and they may just be represented in this panel. But there is a lot of effort that is going into making sure that we close out that skills gap as a critical first step.
Yes, there's definitely a digital divide in Africa, specifically also in the skills. And while we're on that, maybe I'll just ask Thabang, what skills and competencies do you think are essential for teams handling integration projects? And then maybe we can also add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on a few earlier, data engineering, data science. I mean, I speak from a lens that specifically looks at AI and AI integration. But I think what's important is to not be overtaken by hype. One instance I can give you is there's a huge drive now for people moving towards studying prompt engineering. It's a discipline where you can precisely get the required answer from large language models or NLP architectures by specifying the prompt exactly. And the founder of Perplexity came out recently, which is one of the biggest competitors to ChatGPT. And he was saying that their mission is to make it simpler and simpler for people to prompt the interface. So you can misspell, you don't even need to type full sentences. So that then gives the impression that, you know, prompt engineering might not be sustainable long term as a career. So it's important to not look at what is you know, hyped right now or sensationalized right now, but to look, you know, long term. Yeah.
That's very interesting. In your perspective, Christian, when it comes to organizations building a pipeline of skills, specifically to handle this integration of legacy systems, cloud systems, data systems, different applications, hardware, software, what are the skills and competencies you think organizations should be investing in their people?
Yeah, that's a tough one. In the African context, and depending on where you are, we do sometimes have a skills shortage in certain areas. So to get people who are, certified and years of experience, X number of years as a data engineer or a cloud engineer or one of those things. I guess the best approach would be to create, call them almost learning and development activities within an organization that help grow people into those roles. And that's the way that seems to be the most successful. As sometimes often we do find that resources are either too highly priced or too scarce, and in that case we have to generate our own, call them guilds or practices within the organization that create these skills for us.
Can I just add on that, Soela? So what you note is there's an increasing trend as well where roles are now, or skills are now becoming hybridized. And this is because of ever-evolving technology. I mean, with cloud providers, it's so much easier now to build your own model, deploy your own model. So you'll find a lot of data scientists are now also doing a lot of the data engineering themselves. A lot of cloud engineers can build models. So the future seems like, the waters could be muddied where people have a lot of fingers in a lot of pies.
From an agile perspective, yes, I do see that. So I'm an agile practitioner, and we like to call it cross-functional, meaning the whole true essence of DevOps is I can build an application, but I can deploy it at the same time. I don't need to pass it on to the next person to deploy it.
Yeah.
So you find that the skill set now is you're gaining more skills, and it's now very cross-functional type of skill set. And I think maybe that would be a trend going forward, is where a lot of people have got a lot of skills. You can now become an AI engineer while you're doing data analytics, while you're a DevOps engineer. So now a lot of people will have a lot of skill sets. That's what I think.
So if I may add, in our organization, we use the terminology that people are becoming less focused in particular areas and becoming more T-shaped or cone-shaped in terms of their skills and tools.
That's true. And I think to something Thabang said, with the rate and pace of change, just the manner in which new things are emerging from technologies and trends and that sort of thing, you can no longer pat yourself on the back about a skill that you acquired in technology 3 years ago if you have not done something about it. The world has changed. 3 years ago is not today. And we are finding that it's no longer about simply acquiring a skill to move yourself from A to B, but it's about acquiring a skill and developing a talent of a culture of continuous learning that ensures that whatever it is that emerges, if you're going to win, you're on top of. So the future belongs to those individuals, to those business people, to those entrepreneurs, and to those enterprises that make it their business to continuously learn, evolve, adapt, acquire new levels of understanding, and continuously build on that, to stay relevant, to continue to deliver services in an increasingly complex market. He spoke about customer experiences and hyper-personalization using generative AI. And even the models are starting to talk back at us and to tell us that actually how we used to solve for customer X a year ago has changed. And that will only continue to scale and escalate.
I want us to now talk about some of the success stories that you've experienced, and I want to start with you. Maybe just tell us how you decided to solve the problem of improving customer experience in languages that the customers can understand.
Yeah, so I mean, interesting one. So when we started, we thought it was such an obvious thing. You know, we thought surely someone is doing this, right? So initially we wanted to create a banking bot, right, plugging through APIs from AWS and friends, but the models weren't available in the local languages, right? So it's just from that moment, fortunately for us, we were studying in the electrical engineering department at the University of Cape Town. So we were quite familiar with the domain, right? And I think just on the topic of discussion previously, there is still room for domain expertise, even if technologies evolve.
Certainly.
So for us, because we were so close to like signals and systems, right? It was very easy for us to start building models, speech models, because we understood the technology quite deeply. So that's kind of how our journey started. Because the solution wasn't available, we started building the models for transcription, text-to-speech, translation, and the likes. And we've now built solutions on top of that to serve organizations of all sizes that are dealing with diverse customer bases. And that's where we are right now. But simply, it was like an interaction with my grandmother asking me to make prepaid airtime for me that kind of sparked this journey. She's saying this in Setswana. I understand what she wants to say. She understands exactly what she wants to do. She can articulate it, the vouchers in English, her phone in English. So clearly the barrier there was language. And we realized then that it's not just her. It's not just with prepaid airtime. It's a lot of South Africans, about like 70% not comfortable speaking English. And yeah, there's a lot of problems that come with that. You can't open a business online if you don't understand English, if you can't read English, right? So you're being excluded from the formal digital economy. And it's those things that got us on this journey. And thanks to hyperscalers like AWS and friends, that process was significantly easier than it would have been a couple of years ago.
And I mean, just to add on to that is, for example, I'll give you an example of YouTube. Sometimes my children, when they're looking for something on YouTube, they use the speech recognition function, and it works. When I use it, it doesn't recognize my accent. Like, it just doesn't. And that frustrates me. Or even voice command in a car. Like, you say, I want to go to Randburg, and it will say something else. But just because it didn't understand my language, it wasn't good, my language. So, out of interest, how many languages are on your...
So currently we've got 13 African languages.
That's fantastic.
11 of which are the 11 spoken South African languages. And then we've got Kenyan Swahili and Kinyarwanda. But I think to your point, when we say we've got English, we're talking specifically about South African English. Because all of these languages have like different dialects. Swahili, Kenyan Swahili specifically.
Okay. Awesome. I want to hear success stories, Kishan. Integration success stories. How you managed to talk AWS with friends. Talk.
So I won't say AWS so much, but I'll speak a little bit about Salesforce, which is another big one in our organization.
Yeah.
Right? So as much as we've got a sizable footprint in AWS, also in the Azure space in corporate functions, we do deal with Salesforce in our marketing space. And as you'll know, the integration tool of choice is something called MuleSoft, which Salesforce saw a gap in the market and said we need something to kind of interconnect all of our different clouds and all of the information that's flowing into us. So let's go out and get MuleSoft. And in our in the marketing space, which I do look after in the architecture, it was a challenge around how do we leverage this integration within Salesforce to connect out to the different pieces of marketing. And over time, we call it the black hole. Salesforce has become the black hole that has sucked up all of the marketing applications in that landscape. And the stuff that is not being absorbed into Salesforce has been integrated thoroughly. So obviously, a lot of planning went into that, understanding how we're going to utilize the APIs, a lot of the technical work in detail, which I'm not going to go too much into.
Great. I want to hear about the cost. What are some of the success integration stories that you've seen with some of your partners, customers?
Well, I guess we could mention a few, but I guess a lot of what we're doing, we're solving real customer challenges in quite a few sectors. We can speak about how we are creating and working with some of our customers to build out API-driven architectures so that if you're building a solution, you don't have to build and own every native aspect of it, but you can string together multiple components from multiple providers or application builders, systems, to bring about the kind of integrated proposition that solves the problem or meets the need. And we're seeing this in financial services for small businesses in countries like Kenya. We're seeing it in some of the technology innovations in e-commerce as well, even East Africa, and how that is starting to accelerate using the interconnection of mobile payments and mobile money for the unbanked. This is bringing a lot of people who are outside the mainstream economy into the economy. And I mean, I could go on. There's many different things that are happening in other sectors, in agriculture, using smart agriculture and a few other things where we're starting to use intelligent systems and automation to drive efficiencies and increase production yield and that sort of thing. All again coming down to integrated system solutions and services, not one single product that came and solved the conversation, but different components that we were able to connect using cloud to deliver on the outcome that was expected. There are challenges still that need to be solved for. Connectivity, we spoke about earlier, when you mentioned some of the challenges. It's an enduring problem. In fact, I'll always be amazed at how in Kenya they were able to build out an entire mobile money capability using basic connectivity, not even 3G, just plain text, GPRS, M-Pesa, Safaricom. And this thing has changed the way life works in that part of the world and has allowed for total inclusion. But in order to fully democratize access to technology, there's a need to solve that broader connectivity challenge. And we're starting to see the arrival of new players in the market, extraterrestrial players like your Starlink that are saying it doesn't matter where you are in some valley in the middle of nowhere, where there might not be cell service, we will find a way to get to you at a fairly reasonable price. You know? All of this going towards bringing about that interconnectivity that allows someone in that valley to work with someone in China to collaborate on a proposition that can be sold to the rest of the world.
I like hearing African stories because we've got so much potential, we've got so many problems, and we've got very smart people here that can solve them. So I really like hearing the African stories, the success stories, because it just gives me hope that we are solving our own problems and not relying on other people to come and solve them for us. Success story, use case of the digital integration in your organization, or even something that you know of.
Yeah. I mean, as I look at Kishan from the Blue Bank, and I'm reminded of my ironclad NDA. But if I can share something, it's how we've successfully managed to optimize our workflows and really improve on efficiencies. So in the fraud and financial crimes landscape, we note that fraudsters don't sleep. You can never have a human workforce large enough to end all of the fraud or financial crime in the world. So how do you then mitigate against that risk? It's through the use of integrating to intelligence systems, integrating to advanced computing resources. So it doesn't even have to be something that is super technical. Just using generative AI, for instance, for I almost slipped up, but yeah, you get the point.
You speak of fraud analytics.
Sure.
So maybe 6 years ago, I worked on a project for a company, and the solution was implementing fraud analytics, and it was connecting to different systems so that it could pick up certain dubious activities. And the reports that came out when we presented them to the CFO, I mean, it was 80% that a lot of the processes, it identified fraud in 80% of these processes. And the CFO looked at me and said, gotta switch it off. And I was like, wow, shouldn't we fix this? And, because sometimes, there's technology out there, but then there's also the other aspects. Because he was like, it now means I now need to start a forensic audit, and 80% is high, so it
Yeah.
means I have to get rid of my whole department, and it's just going to open a can of worms. And he's just like, let's just switch it off.
Yeah,
And
that's
we had spent millions on this solution. And it was very smart. It was a very smart solution. So it just begs to differ. I now want to ask, to say, what are some of the challenges that you faced when it comes to implementing the integration solutions? And what are some of the challenges that you faced?
And I think I can relate to what you just said. So I mean, we have a solution in the call center space where we can analyze up to 100% of the call, regardless of the language spoken. And similar to you, we had a client say, I don't want to monitor 100% because when I have questions to answer based on what the system brings. So I think the technology is one piece, the people is another piece.
Absolutely.
For any technology to fully do what it's supposed to do, the people have to be on board. So it's always important to consider what impact the technology or the system you're integrating has on people, even at a very personal level. So now I'm not going to see my kids on weekends because of this solution.
And Kesha, some of the challenges that you faced when it comes to integrating systems?
So some of the challenges we faced when it comes to building systems. Okay, so Standard Bank, also being one of the older banks in the country with 160 years of legacy, means that we do have a very, very complicated landscape. It's quite interconnected, and sometimes untangling what we call the spaghetti in our architecture takes us the most time. So you sometimes are faced with a use case where you look at how these two applications are connected, and you live scratching your head wondering why. So it's
that business case.
yes, exactly. Why are we doing this? And sometimes you might find the reason is maybe 10 years ago it made sense for something that has now become obsolete in terms of business process. So those are some of that's the biggest challenge that you have with integration, in my opinion.
Mr. Minutes, what are some of the challenges that you experience?
So I think I want to get back to the point he was making about the people. I think people are often the biggest challenge that we face in our line of work for a few reasons. So change can be good, change can be bad. Disruptive change often means that people need to quickly acquire new skills to adapt to the new norm, or become redundant and fall away. And with many of the customers we work with today, we have individuals in powerful positions who can see the need for change, appreciate the expedience required to move things, understand the mid to long term or the downstream benefit, but are terrified about what that means for themselves, for their staff and their teams, and for just the enormity of the opportunity change requirement. And often we find that these individuals start holding up potential positive changes, technology changes, just to survive, right? Now, I don't want us to come across as judgmental. We actually need to be quite empathetic, because if someone is in their mid to late 50s, they've got 5 years of runway to go, after which they get their pension and they can walk away. And you're coming there and you're telling them that something they've been doing for 25 years or whatever is no longer the thing, and they need to quickly adapt, learn new skills, deliver differently, and so forth. This is a problem for them. So we've found this to be a enduring challenge with many of the people that we interact with today. But the real question, I guess, for businesses comes down to, there is the cost of change. It can be financial, it can be, the process on its own, it can be people. But in many instances, the opportunity cost of doing nothing is proving to be higher than the cost of just biting the bullet and changing. So this is an enduring challenge.
Yeah, I'd like to echo those sentiments. I think adoption is a big one. Can go into many organizations. Something as simple as visualizing your data. They'll have a blanket license for Power BI, a license for ClickView, a license for all of these different softwares under the sun. But when you look at usage statistics, they're very poor. I think that necessitates looking at these integration challenges from a perspective of requirements, right? Look solely at your situation and judge if you need the tool. I mean, it touches on what Thapelo was saying earlier. AI can't be a silver bullet. There are lots of problems that that require far less sophisticated solutions. So in order for us to drive adoption, I think the requirements have to be spec'd out to the T.
I want to echo that sentiment because I've been to numerous organizations and find exactly what you're saying. So many tools that can do the same thing, and
Yeah.
then someone wants a report, and then we say get it from this system, that system, and we're like, you know what? These two systems actually, one of them you don't need, and we need to integrate them somehow. So I think the whole, going back to the people, I agree with you. Sometimes we are the problem.
No, sure.
And it's these business cases that are being written, people driving their own agendas, bringing in solutions, maybe just to solve their space without really thinking about the bigger picture of how this will affect the organization. Because like you said, I've been to organizations, Tableau, Power BI, everything is there. ClickView, Cognos, it's all there.
Expensive.
So it's definitely a challenge, I mean, for every, call it medium to large enterprise. I mean, exactly what Lyndon has spoken about and my colleague, Dr. has echoed. And we find it very prevalent at Standard Bank as well.
There's a big challenge, and I think a big part of it as well. So we can speak to the mindsets being a blocker.
Yeah.
We can speak to the importance of speccing to a team. But another thing that we're finding, and actually Christian spoke about it just now when he mentioned the spaghetti in the bank, is that in speccing or in designing architectures, too many of the designs are linear in nature, and there isn't enough critical lateral thinking incorporated into the spec to take into consideration what the world might look like tomorrow and how this thing that we are designing today might need to be adapted to solve for tomorrow. And because of that, many brilliant innovations are put out there, they go into production and they run, and in 9 months, sorry, we need a brand new build, starting from scratch, because this one did not incorporate the fact that it might need to change shape a little bit. So we must absolutely spec to a team, but we must spec with a future-focused mindset that says we're solving for today, but we're creating enough room and flexibility and adaptability for tomorrow's requirement, whatever that might look like.
As an agile practitioner, I would say we need to welcome change,
Embrace
change.
it, absolutely.
I believe there's some questions online. May I have?
So the first one is, how is AI helping businesses with lead generation? Is there a specific application that any of the speakers would suggest?
Doctor
Lead generation, sales.
or Kishan? Maybe you learned something from Salesforce.
So I guess there is a sort of application within the marketing space. So at Standard Bank and most organizations, predominantly you're looking to do an upsell or a cross-sell when it comes to your products. How do you gain insight? Is this customer somebody that has been through the marketing process before? Does he have products with us? There are applications that can assist with that. I guess within Salesforce it would be Einstein. Anything apart from that, I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, more than any tool, I mean, this touches on what we just said short moments ago. Maybe leverage your data. What we find is that the data tells, paints a picture. If for instance, I've got a overdraft, what's the propensity that I'll also apply for a personal loan? that in itself can guide you in terms of lead generation.
Okay, the next one is to Keshen. It says, how did you manage the migration to AWS Cloud? Did you find it better to start off hybrid or did you move completely to cloud? If the latter, how did you, I guess, suppose, how did you do change management? Did you have to bring AWS advisors to train employees?
Okay, where to start with that one? So it's a bit more complicated, the actual story, but I'm going to try and keep it short and succinct. So when Standard Bank looked at the cloud offerings and said, guys, cloud is a good thing, we need to make the best use of it we can. There was two different camps, those who kind of believed we should be going single cloud and multi-cloud. Eventually, we landed on the multi-cloud option. So you'll find that in our organization, we have split the cloud load between AWS and Azure. So getting into each one of those clouds and making sure we leverage the best that we can out of the technologies available to us, we definitely needed to call in consultants there. I mean, it was a learning curve in terms of doing the migration to cloud. Nobody understood at that point, and a lot of businesses will tell you cloud is more expensive. Rather stay on-prem if it's and that's to the whole earlier thing when we kind of started the roundtable. You have to carefully manage what are you looking to get out of cloud and what strategies are you going to adopt. And obviously, like the clever thing I mentioned about switching your servers on and off, making sure you've got the right loads, making sure your hardware is scalable, all of those nice things come with cloud, but it's how you employ clever strategies to use that and get the best benefit. That's the real winner.
So there's one on YouTube, so I'm going to continue because there was one for Tapelo before, but because we're talking about it, I'm going to continue on YouTube. It says, in your organization, what role has change management played in integration? Because we're talking about change, I thought I should bring it. So this is, I guess, just a whole panel. Whoever can answer.
Yeah, I think change management is crucial because it speaks to how do we integrate new technologies or be future looking without disrupting current business processes. I feel, a lot of times there's instances where we so much in a rush to integrate or deploy the latest model that's current business processes fall through the cracks. So yeah, change management is one of the biggest tools that you need to keep an eye on.
Good. Anyone else? To the panel? Change
Does
management?
anyone else want to add on to change management?
Well,
Okay.
Let me ask Tapelo this question.
Yeah, I think that's
So question to Tapelo, do you guys only provide language AI services to your clients or do you collaborate and work with other AI startups as well?
Yeah, so how we've built our technology is that we started with the models and then we built APIs of each model. All the solutions leverage the models, and I think it was with that view of like building for the future in mind, right? So kind of building that in that way. And because of that, we're able to serve startups or people building solutions with the specific APIs. So you want to run transcription, you can run it through us. So in short, yes.
Good. I'm going to bring a YouTube one because you raised it, and I think it goes back to the definition of integration. It says that integration means building APIs. It means there's an ambiguity why someone actually has that. That definition, they're trying to find out if building APIs is what integration is about in digital transformation.
Not necessarily, because my colleague on the panel from AWS will tell you there's also real-time streaming and things to consider, like services that you can use, things like Kinesis in AWS to stream your data. Is a way of integrating, not necessarily has to be an API.
Yeah, it's definitely just a small part of it. Could also look at integration in terms of internally or just interdepartmental, intra-team, where a big challenge with deploying AI technologies is a lot of business units will be fragmented. A lot of data science initiatives operate in silos. So just integrating the data landscape in an organization already, that's one example.
Okay. Go to the next question.
Wait,
Okay.
how did you hear on the API, what's your...
No, I think my colleagues here have done a sterling job in explaining that APIs are just a single interconnection point. There's multiple other ways through which you can integrate and access utility or service from different systems and solutions. And I mean, he spoke about streaming, for instance, using platforms. Off the top of my head, there's third-party platforms like Confluent that help you to stream data from one system to another, and allow you then to process, multiple types of data. In the world of AI, we're now starting to talk about retrieval augmented generation, where GenAI is now being enriched with real-time data potentially from other real-time data sources that are separate to the primary. And this is not necessarily API driven. There's a lot of additional integration points that exist beyond APIs. APIs are probably the simplest in many cases, but there's a world of additional capability existing and emerging that we can harness to drive integration.
Good. What role does mobile technology play in integration?
It's key.
I would say in the African context, I think it would be big. Specifically because a lot of us are always on our phones. In fact, there was a small little comment in the last roundtable to say the first thing people do when they wake up is they reach out and grab their phones. So any application that an organization, a startup is considering to build needs to be mobile responsive, needs to be on a mobile device. And then that technology needs to integrate to whatever third-party application that you have. It should be able to work on a mobile phone. So my opinion is mobile is very key, especially in Africa, for integration projects. Yes,
I think just to add a little to that particular one, if you just look at the history of the mobile phone, from the time that it first came up, and some of us will remember those big devices that could be weaponized if needed. But since that time, the mobile phone has probably been the most transformative piece of consumer technology that we've seen in our lifetimes. And you can see this simply by the extent to which it has disenfranchised so many other technologies. So the mobile phone took out cameras. It took out you remember your Walkman, then your CD man, then your MP3 player, gone, right? It's taken out calculators, and increasingly it has started adopting more and more functions from your computer, because now it's got compute power that can compete and sometimes exceed the compute you will find on some of these devices, to an extent where you can actually function on your phone. And it goes even further. Look at what the banks have done now. You don't need to carry a physical card. Carry your phone. And the show will continue to go on. Is the mobile phone integral to technology as we know it, to integrations? I can't see how we can live without it at this point. It's killed newspapers, it's killed everything.
Yeah, to add to what Mindy was saying, and I think the whole narrative around the mobile phone, it's kind of set the stage for the fourth industrial revolution. Right? And we're now on the verge of looking at the Internet of Things. How do you split compute power over many devices and maybe reflect it on your phone or on your watch or all of those type of interconnected devices talking to each other? How do we reap the benefits of it?
Just the final point for me on this one. We also have to be cognizant of the future, as my co-panelist said earlier. What does the future of mobile look like? I would caution against any new organization or startup just going mobile, because there's regulations and policies that you might have to adhere to in the future. For instance, edge computing is becoming increasingly important because of regulations such as the POPIA Act. If I want to create an immaculate background behind me using GenAI, I don't necessarily want my pictures to leave the phone and then be, manipulated on the cloud. So just, I would advise, startup founders to be cognizant of that as well.
Okay. How can we use IoTs to integrate to legacy systems?
Can you?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, you can. I think, and there's many use cases. Several roles ago, I worked for one of the big GSIs, consulting houses, and at the time we deployed these IoT sensors at a mine, and they were deployed on these trucks that needed to carry a certain load. Now, everyone will have heard about some of the challenges with coal deliveries to power stations where there are trucks that show up with rocks and that sort of thing. We put sensors on trucks that could track and make sure that the truck left with the exact same load that it will arrive with on the other side. And you could use IoT devices to track and make sure that this was on point. But beyond that, the tracker in your car is an IoT device, right? We also did a POC for a big energy producing state-owned company here in South Africa, where we used IoT trackers on certain components in a power station, right? And these trackers, or these little sensors, could tell us at what stage in a life cycle certain components were. It could tell us or point us to tempering. It could point us to potential challenges that this thing, if it's heating up like this, it's likely to seize in the next day. And it would send prompts to a legacy procurement system. And the legacy procurement system would order the next part and make sure it's delivered so that the downtime is not exacerbated. As in, these things are there and they're happening. Very possible. You can have these things that are totally disassociated from reality, speaking to a legacy reality, to drive and create efficiencies that take us forward.
Okay. So the reason why I said that was there is this utility, but not in South Africa, in Nigeria, and they have trouble with their power station, with the plant, and they just want analytics on how the plant's doing. Right now it's very manual in terms of someone going, seeing, hearing, listening. So yeah, I would be interested to know more about those IoT devices that work on the
Absolutely.
mechanical plant and how they can extract data from a mechanical plant.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, everything has a signature, right? If it's a machine, if it's an engine, the engine on your car, when running optimally with the right oil levels and the right coolant and so forth, and driving on the right conditions on the right road, will vibrate at a certain measurable quantity, right? If one of those variables changes, that vibration shifts, there's a sensor that will tell you something has changed. And all of this data over time can be pulled together and analyzed to start preemptively predicting outcomes for which we can solve. So that is a conversation I think that we should.
No, we should have that conversation.
There's several more questions. I think we should do two before we close out. Simple one. What does one study to do a job in digital integration?
People management. Anyone maybe? Do you want to take that one, Taban?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak directly from a lens of data science and AI. I think it's not so much the eventual discipline that you go into; it's the mindset. I think if you are naturally curious and you gravitate towards disciplines that allow you to fine tune that skill, disciplines such as the mathematical sciences or physics, or it could be quantum computing. You find a lot of PhDs at Google didn't even study computer science. They physicists or they astrophysicists. And that's because a lot of these scientific domains, more than anything, more than teaching you how to code or whatever, they teach you the skill set of how to think analytically. And ultimately, that's what's most important.
I agree completely. I think even for me, the most valuable thing I think I got from my degree is, how to think in a
Yeah, you're an electrical engineer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More than the plus transforms or the calculus or whatever. It's really how to approach a problem. So I think it's not about like what specific field or degree. It's more about what can get you to think like that. I completely agree.
More like systems thinking.
Yeah.
The last one. What do ERP vendors need to do to allow seamless integrations?
I would say they need to be more user-centric and build ERP systems with the user in mind. So some form of design thinking must go into their systems. Reason being is a lot of the current ERP systems that I've interacted with are not very user-friendly, and there's a lot of customization that's required, and it down the road it leads down to frustration. So I would say they need to apply a more design thinking process in the way they develop their applications. They must also think about integration with cloud, and also they should also look at integration with other applications that may need to plug into them or they need to plug into. So I would say.
Can I just add on to that? So I think a very pertinent topic relevant to that question is around mesh architecture, or the concept of it, where we string together data from multiple sources in whatever form we need to be. So especially in the Azure space, they do have tools that can help with that. And you find that popping up oddly enough in SAP, for example. I'll mention DataSphere. which is something we now seeing the rise of. So hopefully it does filter through to the other large ERP providers, but that is a way that this whole concept of mesh architecture and how do we string the data together, that's something that I think is going to come more to the forefront as time goes on.
In closing, I would just like to go around the panel, and I would like to ask you something. It's now soul searching. You need to dig deep into yourself. What do you think will be your contribution to really changing the narrative of digital transformation in Africa? What do you think your contribution will be?
Wow. Yeah. Really requires soul searching. But I think our contribution at Botlale specifically would be to really push people to think about the people we're serving. I think a lot of what we talk about ultimately has to benefit and impact real people.
Great.
Right? And our work really speaks to that. For a very long time, the systems and technologies and architectures that could bring NLP models to life have been available, but they haven't been done. So really our contribution is to shift the focus and say, if we're developing systems for Africa, if we're transforming Africa, are we transforming it in a way that makes sense for Africa? Are we procuring systems? Are we thinking about things in the context of Africa? Yeah.
Thank you. Linda, what will your contribution
So is this Lyndon's contribution or is it?
be? Linda.
Okay. Yeah, look, so I think some of the things that matter the most to me, and I'm not a politician, so please don't throw any stones, is that there's this massive focus and emphasis on job creation. And everyone needs to earn a living. I think it's the right thing for just about every rational grown adult. But I think we might need to start shifting our focus a little bit away from just jobs to livelihoods. This is where we stop, approaching the world with a view to what you can do for your CV, but about how you can creatively solve a problem in society as an entrepreneur, how you can think out of the box and create new value as opposed to competing for those one or two spots in the corporate somewhere. I think we need to start shifting our thinking away from that. And a lot of the technologies that are emerging today are actually increasingly geared towards promoting open-minded innovation, out-of-the-box thinking, and with the right level of access, with the right level of initiative and openness to learning new things, I think we will start to see that shift away from jobs to livelihoods. So what does Lyndon think he can do? I want to get involved in initiatives, and I've already started working in initiatives where we actually are helping some of the emerging people on the continent to think about things that they can do that don't necessarily require them to go for an interview, but things that they can do using technology to position themselves for success by creating new value. And there's inspiring stories out there about problems that are being solved by native Africans for Africa. He could have gone and gotten a job, but no, I think he should actually be looking at how he positions that proposition with Apple, who are about to launch Apple Intelligence, and Siri doesn't understand our languages. But this is the power of what technology can do when we adopt an open mind that says it's about the livelihood, not about a job, we're able to create things that can really change the world.
What is your contribution to changing the narrative of digital transformation now? Keep it small in South Africa.
In South Africa, sure. I think having started in a very technical sort of way and worked my way up through IT, my narrative would be is, if we can get the ones that come after us, or the ones that, or position them to be best suited or in a space, whatever legacy we leave behind, be it working at a large bank or financial institution, to take the best advantage of digital innovation. And, that would be sort of my contribution to it. Lyndon spoke very well and had a lofty goal there of being able to help people, and just shout out to that. That was awesome.
Thanks. I don't know how, but I would like to be involved.
And it's something that got me thinking as well. Maybe at some point I'll join you.
There we go.
There we go.
That was like collaboration, integration.
That is integration.
Yeah.
I think what I'm about to say echoes a lot of my co-panelist sentiments. I think changing lives, but if I can add on that, in a measurable way. So there's things that you can tangibly measure. I think working in financial services, we look at things such as inclusivity, right? A lot of South Africans still don't have access to a smartphone or to internet. Only 6% of the rurals are connected to any sort of internet in Africa. When you think about our recent innovation, Chat Wallet, you can now bank on WhatsApp. That speaks to accessibility. There's lots of applications. I think about financial literacy in the African climate. But yeah, it's not just limited to banking or financial services. I mean, this is a broader conversation of how we can improve our lives, and I think leverage tools such as high performance computing or AI, because this is our time. I mean, I think what is exposed is that we actually can play on a level playing field. I mean, what they've done at Botlhale is ingenious, and it really looks like low-hanging fruits. Why didn't anybody think of this? But it's the ingenuity of bridging that gap, so that we can compete on a global level.
Lovely. From my perspective, I think it's threefold, and it starts off with this year as CEO of Bytech. I said I want to be intentional. I want to be intentionally African, and whatever it is that we're doing must be focused around that. So one of the things we've built currently is the Digital Maturity Index, which is purely on African data. We've interviewed African organizations in Africa, and by Africa it's South Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Swaziland, Mozambique, and Nigeria. So we've collected a database, and we are now assessing digital maturity using African data based on African context. So that's the first thing. So if you do a digital maturity assessment with us, you'll be benchmarked against your peers. You won't be benchmarked against a company in Zurich. Okay. So that's the first one. So our products are very African-centric, African-focused. We believe we are Africans and build solutions for Africa. And the second one is an EPMO. We're building an EPMO solution, which is like a command center in your hand. And it's just to help organizations run their projects better. But the nuances that we don't find in the other EPMO tools, that's what we're building in ours. So look out for that. And then lastly, this actual roundtable where we're deliberately getting people to come, talk about real challenges, talk about success stories so that other people can listen and hear the amazing things that Africans are doing. And it's a platform where people can see the intelligent, successful, knowledgeable Africans doing amazing things with tech and are transforming the digital narrative in Africa. It's proven good. So that's the third one, this roundtable series. And I'd like to encourage you, Lyndon, I'm definitely going to want to work with you on your initiatives. I am already thinking of how we can collaborate, all of us here. I don't think this is the end. I just want to say thank you so much for coming and gracing us this evening. You could have been anywhere, you could have said no, but you decided to come and share your voice, share your knowledge, share insights. Let's network. So thank you everyone, and to our audience, thanks for the questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you for engaging with us online and actually watching. And with that being said, my name is Tawela Zulu Mukosa from Biotechnologies Africa. Thank you.